This is My First Job in Sports, the show created to kickstart your journey toward a successful career in the sports industry. Presented by SBRnet, your comprehensive source for data focused on sports fans and more. Here's your host of My First Job in Sports, Neil Schwartz.
You'll notice today that I'm not with my usual co-host, Dr. Ashley Gardner. Dr. Ashley has been called away by her school, Temple University. And I am joined today, and I am really excited to be joined today by my partner in the Get in the Game event, Yussuf Khan. Yussuf, welcome to My First Job in Sports.
Thank you for having me, Neil. I'm excited to be here. Glad I could tag in.
Yeah, we were glad to have you. Yussuf, why don't you do this? Why don't you talk a little bit about your background? Because I do think your background is really unique to mine, and also really unique, in terms of what you bring, at Get in the Game.
Sure. So I began my career actually in banking. I worked at Chase Manhattan Bank for about 6 years. And during that time, my last year at the bank, I actually was working at Madison Square Garden in New York, the branch there. Ended up meeting some of the employees from the Knicks who were upstairs. And they said, hey, why don't you try this thing called game night marketing? I'm like, okay, it's after work. I can do that. So I ended up doing that. And it was actually the strike season in 99. So we didn't start until January of that year. And in the meantime, I also met someone who worked at ESPN. And they said, hey, we got a great way for you to get into sports, but it's an entry level position. And I was pretty far advanced in my career, but I decided to take the leap and started at ESPN as an assistant and worked my way up into a senior planner. And then I moved over to College Sports Television, which was my first startup venture, and became an account executive there in sales and marketing and sponsorship. And from there, I built my career. And in startups in particular, I spent the last 25 years of my career in startups at College Sports Television, Big Lead Sports, the Shadow League, and First and Penn, which I now launched a few years ago.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that the My First Job in Sports show was in many ways kind of the seed for Get in the Game. Mm-hmm. We started, back with my former partner, Mark Sullivan. We started with My First Job in Sports. We met Yussuf, and it really just came together really quickly. And in fact, we're now heading into our third year. Yep. And, you never know what's going to happen when you create a new event, how it's going to be well received. In this case, it's been received really well. So, Yussuf and I have built a great brand. We think we've built a great program with Get in the Game. And of course, SBRnet is proud and pleased to be able to sponsor My First Job in Sports. So we do have this new segment on My First Job in Sports called Neil's Data Dump. And hey, look, let's face it, I'm in the data business. I like to impart a little bit of data, maybe even, a little bit of a self-plug and all that. But I thought we're going to be very golf intensive today. Our guest on the show is Andrea Lattimore, who is head of talent acquisition and community relations, I believe, for the Acushnet companies, which are FootJoy and Titleist, just to name a few. But, one of the things you're going to see is on the screen right now, you're going to see that golf has had a slight jump in the number of fans, which means the sport is growing in popularity. Right. More people are watching, more people are engaging, more people are engaged on social media, more people watching, whether it's on streaming. And one of the reasons why golf is in fact growing has been they have been able to utilize new media. And I know, Yussuf, you are someone that has paid careful attention to new media, whether it's social media, streaming media, and things like that. So, we're really excited. Today's guest on My First Job in Sports is Andrea Lattimore from Acushnet Companies, which of course are the makers of Titleist as well as FootJoy products for the golf industry. And as you know, we got pretty golf intensive today in our open. And really, Andrea is going to talk a little bit about students coming out of college and going into the golf business. And they don't have to really love golf, but you really need to understand that there are a wealth of opportunities in the golf business. So My First Job in Sports would like to welcome Andrea Lattimore to the show. Welcome, Andrea.
Thanks, Neil. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're really excited. Andrea has been a part of our Get in the Game event now. This will be her second year this year, and we're really excited. And what we like to do, Andrea, is, rather than having me kind of give your history, We like to start out with you giving your history and a little bit of, where you've been. I mean, when I look on your bio, it's a non-linear path to where you're at right now. So why don't you take it away and, give us a little bit about Andrea.
Okay. Well, I'm sure to your point, it's definitely not linear. I started my career working in aerospace as a financial analyst, and I could do the work. I knew the numbers, but it wasn't fun or engaging for me. I then had an opportunity to take what I consider a once-in-a-lifetime trip back to my alma mater to talk about my work with that particular aerospace company, and I was sold that working in the people business is where I needed to be. So from there, about maybe 6 months later, an opportunity became available for me to work as a part of the collegiate recruiting team. And I've been in kind of the recruitment talent acquisition space for more than 20 years now. And that came as a result of really just going, okay, they needed alumni from my school. Let me jump in and kind of see what they do. And it just hit me like, yes, this is where I need to be. And then lastly landed here at Titleist almost 4 years ago now. And here we are.
Andrea, you're a graduate of an HBCU at Fisk University. Tell us a little bit about that experience, that you had at the HBCU.
Well, it's kind of a tradition in our family for HBCUs to kind of be your proving ground, if you will. So it didn't matter what college I went to. It just mattered one that I went, but it was really in my heart to go to Fisk. Fisk University is located in Nashville, Tennessee. They were founded in 1866 by General Clinton B. Fisk. And most people know Fisk for the Jubilee Singers who helped to kind of build the framework for where kind of Fisk, we call ourselves, are today. So it was a once in a lifetime, unimaginable experience that I'd never trade. I met some of the best people during my 4 years there.
Talk a little bit about the golf business and I think all of the great opportunities that are around for folks of color, for women, really for, people that want to get into the business.
Well, I think it's an interesting space to be in, specifically because there are not many people who look like me who work in this space. I have the honor to work for one of the leaders in the industry, but in a space where I get to show up in places where people don't expect me, so to speak. So just like Get in the Game is a great opportunity for people who want to work in sport, for example, who don't know how you get there. My job in talent acquisition is really to build relationships so that people see more people who look like them and understand how they can use their skills, experience, and abilities to further their career. So one of the things I tell people is you don't have to work in the sport. You don't have to play the sport to work in the sport. So I've learned to have some intrigue and insight about the game, but I've also learned to leverage those things to tell that story to other people. So if you're an accountant, if you're a marketing professional, if you're an IT professional, and you go, they can't use me in golf. Well, they can. All of those elements are a part of the game in some way. And my job is to help build a bridge between those two.
Yussuf and I produce a wonderful event called Get in the Game. And I know one of the things that Yussuf talks about a lot during the event is that you don't have to love the sport. You don't even have to really have ever done anything in it, but you have to love the idea of getting involved and getting that first job. Yussuf, talk a little bit about that kind of attitude.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, Neil, is that people have options and they understand and have the ability to understand what's out there. So for example, in golf, you may not have ever touched a club or you may not have ever, even watched an event, right? But it's the skill sets you need that will put you into the career. And it could be any career in the golf industry. As Andrea mentioned, it could be in HR, it could be in sales, it could be in, course design. But I think having a tangible experience and giving people the ability to be involved in an activity maybe they've never had any interest in or never been exposed to, I think that's the most important thing when it comes to getting in this industry and also why we started Get in the Game.
One of the things we talk about a lot are the skills that college students need in order to make them ready for a job. Andrea, what do you think are some of the most important? I'm going to ask both hard skills, but also soft skills that students really need to prepare themselves with.
I think it really depends on where the organization you're looking to land. So, for example, if you're coming to our neck of the woods into HR, just having a foundationary knowledge of HR is built on more than just what people consider the HR police, so to speak, that there are 6 different facets within kind of the HR framework that you could go into. So I think having strong foundational knowledge is important, number one. being curious is not only a hard skill, it's also a soft skill, in my opinion, because your curiosity is going to drive what you get to know, what you lock into. And I think thirdly, in the world that we live in, having some technological knowledge is important. So as we know, AI is popping up in every element of our lives. So whether or not we want to embrace it or not, it's going to be there. So having some, familiarity, if you will, with AI is important. From a soft skills perspective, building relationships is so important, especially in golf, because you're spending time on the course with that individual, depending on how many holes you're playing. So that's how you build that rapport and engagement with people. So relationship building. Empathy is important as well, because as we know, life changed after COVID from what we knew it to be to what we know it to be. So empathy and understanding how you engage with other people can be a dictator on how well you work with them in the future and where you end up with them. And lastly, I think it's important to have honesty, because my director, who I love, says all the time, be honest with yourself. If the job that you do today is not what you want to do, how can I help you be where you want to be? And I think it's true. It's salient to working and being happy and successful in what you do every day. There's nothing worse than waking up every day dreading turning on your computer or getting in the car to go to work because this is not what you want.
Yussuf does a lot of teaching at a number of universities. And one of the things that, we talk about a lot, not just at the Get in the Game event, but also in general, is that sometimes students are a little bit shy and they don't know how to approach people and they don't know how to, engage. Andrea, can you talk a little bit about that and what you could recommend for students to help them overcome that shyness?
Sure. I pride myself on being personable. I think it's important to build conversation before you get all into the nitty gritty, so to speak.
Sure.
So making people feel comfortable is part of what will help the engagement. But if you're a student and you're kind of trying to seek out how do you connect with people, use your LinkedIn network, I say number one. People love to have opportunity to talk about themselves. So if there's someone that you're interested in getting to know, and people do it to me all the time, or they, as they say, slide in my DM and say, hey, I'm interested in knowing more about what you do. I'm interested in knowing more about Titleist or FootJoy. Can we set up a time to have a conversation? So asking for those kind of coffee chats. Using the networks at your particular university. If you haven't met the career services director or career services team and you're already a junior, you need to go meet those folks because they can absolutely help you. Leverage your chair or your dean to see what relationships they've already built that you can benefit from. And also, every school has an alumni network. Making sure you're tapping into it, because if you're not aware of who's doing what in the industry you want to go in. And there may be alumni who's smack dab in the middle of sports, for example, that you were like, wow, I never knew alumni from XYZ University, from Fisk University, in my case, worked in XYZ place. I can reach out just based on, hey, on the strength of, I was a Fisk Bulldog, you're a Fisk Bulldog, let's talk more. So I think those are three ways that students could easily, and with some level of comfort, engage with someone who is considered a stranger.
So, Andrea, I have a question for you. As someone who has entered the sports space after being in another industry or even multiple industries, I did the same thing. I was originally in banking and then I transitioned into sports industry, right? Back then when I did it, there weren't many people to talk to about how do you transition, particularly in the sports industry. From your experience that you have, what recommendations would you give to students that are saying, I might have been in this industry, now I wanted to get into sports. How do I do that?
Great question. I think more, and this is a shameless plug for Get in the Game. I think aligning yourself with opportunities like Get in the Game are fabulous because you get that FaceTime with individuals where you don't have to get through the gatekeeper, so to speak. You can just be one-on-one. So I think those kind of opportunities, associations and organizations, every industry or skill has their own kind of niche or group, making sure you're leveraging those. I think it's also important to kind of do your homework because you don't really know what you don't know until you really kind of look into it. And that's one of the beautiful things about when people are like, I'm an accountant. How do accountants work, in golf? Oh, or I'm an engineer. I mean, I understand clubs and balls, but how and where could I use my major? So I think just asking the question, being curious. And I think lastly, because of the beauty of technology, platforms such as LinkedIn provide just great context to what, a day in the life or POV could be for a student. So they could really kind of get a peek inside what could this experience be like for me. And just understanding it may not happen immediately. There's timing to it. And I tell people this story all the time. I didn't come to golf because I was a golfer or that I grew up playing. I came because I had a passion for people. And my director knew that about me. And she said, hey, I know you don't play, but I know you love people and I know this would be great for you. How do you feel? And my first question to her was, I was like, Lori, I don't play golf. She was like, don't worry. We'll get through that part of it. So I have a great mentor. We have a great mentor-mentee relationship. Jasmine, who you know well, is my mentor in the golf space. So things that I need to know, want to know, she is my go-to. So having a mentor is important as well.
Neil, if I could ask a follow-up question in regards to that. You've talked about skills, right? And that's something we focus on in the event is the skill sets needed. But I think another word that students need to understand is transferable skills, right? And you mentioned it quickly about your people person, right? Sure. So regardless of what industry you're in, the people person part is transferable. So talk a little bit about, as it relates to the sports industry, how do you have a student that says, I want to get into sports? How do they identify the transferable skills necessary to get into a certain position in sports?
That's a great question.
I was ready for you today, Andrea. I was ready for you.
I knew he would be.
Transferability, I think people, in my opinion, look at their life and their resume and limit it to just what their function has been. But each function has, rudimentary or foundationary skills, to your point, that can go anywhere with them. So I think a part of that is there are definitely assessment tools that you can absolutely use to determine what your skill sets are. In terms of transferability, I think it's important once you've identified kind of what function, whether it be marketing, IT, finance, any one of those, once you've identified what function that you're really interested in, for example, when you're applying for a job, don't just arbitrarily apply for all the marketing positions, but take time to read. What does this mean to me? One, what does the role mean to me? Will it fill, whatever desire I have in my career path? And what skills are needed? And do I have those? And don't be limited by if there are 10 skills on the list and you only have 7 of them, go, I can't apply. Absolutely not the case. If I had to identify some transferable skills, curiosity is definitely one of them. Master the art of the conversation. And what that means is if you're in a meeting or in a conversation with an individual, whether they're your superior or they're a subordinate or your peer, if there are action items that are exchanged in that conversation, make sure you close the deal. So make sure you follow back up and say, hey, Yussuf, it was great talking to you and Neil today. Here are the 3 things that we're going to do. Let's reconvene on Tuesday at 3:00 or whatever the case may be. Because the better you are at managing the expectation, over-delivering, under-promise and over-deliver, as they say, making sure you're leaning into that. And I think lastly, asking when you don't know. It's 100% okay to ask the question and go, hey, I'm not really sure. Can we reconnect so I can get some more insight on that?
Andrea, do you prefer talking to someone that kind of knows what they want to do, or would you rather have somebody that comes in kind of, the open mind or open, the open palate and says, you know what, I've heard some really good things from you at Get in the Game, as an example, about the golf industry. And, maybe I thought what I thought I wanted is not really what I want.
I think I'm open to both. Because if you kind of have an idea of where you want to go, it makes it a little easier for me to help create that pathway for you.
Right.
However, if you're open to your point and curious about next steps, that gives me the opportunity to kind of curate that experience for you to go, hey, you're a people person, but you like the data and you want to be consumer facing. There are 3 or 4 areas that I could connect you with just to have those preliminary conversations to understand those roles to see what then could make that a better alignment for you.
Hi, you're listening and watching My First Job in Sports, and we're speaking with Andrea Lattimore, who is head of talent acquisition and community engagement for the Acushnet Companies, which of course are the manufacturers of both Titleist and FootJoy, well-known brands in the golf industry. Andrea, I want to shift gears a little bit. Andrea, excuse me. I want to shift gears. One of the things I noticed when I look at your bio is you have spent an awful lot of time giving back, in various ways. Talk a little bit about how important it is to give back and also what it can do in terms of helping you develop your career.
Well, I think, Neil, it's just, I'm a little shy about that because it's natural for me. That's kind of my family is. My dad is a pastor, so giving is innate to him, and I guess by virtue it is to me.
Sure.
So it's just really a part of who I am. I don't necessarily, it's not necessarily something I'm actively looking for. It just kind of comes to me, so to speak. But I think it's an important part of kind of your career because I'm a woman of faith. So I believe to whom much is given, much is required. So I've been blessed with a lot in my life. So a part of my responsibility is to give that back in many ways. So for example, part of what we do in talent acquisition is really to give that coaching and that wisdom and that insight. And I tell students all the time,
sure,
even if we've just met at an event or career fair or what have you, use me as a resource. Even if you're not calling me about an internship with the Acushnet Company, but you're going to XYZ place and you're questioning an interview or a question that you've been asked, or how do you push back if you get into an uncomfortable situation, I'm happy to provide that wisdom and that insight. And I say that because there wasn't always a sounding board that I could ask that question to. So what better person to ask since I've already had the bumps and bruises to be able to pour into someone else?
I wish I would have had somebody around like you when I was looking for a job. I mean, I talked to a lot of students that get in the game and all that, and they seem to have so many advantages, but yet it's still competitive. It's still difficult. Yussuf, I know, talks a lot about media and the sports business. And Yussuf, I don't know, you want to shed a little bit of light, how about some of the different opportunities that we see at Get in the Game?
Yeah. So at Get in the Game, we've always tried to, expose students to a wide array of careers and opportunities in the sports industry, because many students, as Andrea, I'm sure you know, you're in sports? Do you go to the games? How many athletes have you met? Right? They get enamored with the celebrity of it,
right,
versus how do you build a true career in it? Right. And I think that's the mental part that I try to get students to adjust to. So when I teach in my classes, I'm like, okay, when you come in this door, you're a business person. You're no longer a fan. You're no longer this. You're really a business person. And I think that's one of the primary things we're trying to get students to understand is that, yes, you might like this team, but you might get a job for their competitor. And how do you manage that? And that actually takes me to a question I have for you is that when you came last year, right, I'm sure a majority of the students had never even picked up a club before.
Nope.
Right. And now you're trying to convince them to say, hey, you can build your career in the golf industry, even though it's a sport you never even thought about. Right. So how do you convince them to sort of open their eyes a little bit more to the industry, as well as say, you know what, I'm going to try to pick up this club so I can learn more about the experiential part of it?
I use this as an example. I always say everyone in the NFL doesn't carry the ball, run down the field. Golf is the same way. Everyone who plays doesn't pick up a club.
Right.
We are fortunate in that, working for the number one brand in the industry is easy. It's easy from a naming convention, so to speak. But when it comes to getting people comfortable, because historically golf has been a little bit elitist. So getting them past that part of it, I think just telling the story about where I came from, never in a million years did I imagine I would work in sport ever. Like, I was like, wait, I was explaining to my husband when I first got the job, he was like, well, wait a minute. This ain't golf. You don't even play. Like, what are you doing? So it's really, as I say, I'm a people person. I love people. I remember when I first started working, I remember having a conversation with my dad, and he said, well, baby, what do you want to do? And I said, Dad, I just want to help people. I just want to know at the end of the day that I made a difference in someone's life. And that matters to me. That's not just something I say, it really matters. So I've been fortunate to be in a space, in a place where I've been able to do that.
Right.
And as long as you're letting what's in your heart guide you, there won't be any manipulation in it. That opportunity will make itself available to you. And what's meant for you will be for you, regardless of the life circumstances.
And if I could continue on that, so I'm going to embarrass you a little bit, Andrea, but it's important for people to understand this. Last year when you came to the event, everybody came up to me afterwards. What is the name of that woman in the white suit that was up there talking about golf? Right. And I'm like, oh, you mean Andrea? Yeah. I got to get in touch with her. But it was that physical feature that stood out for them. And the reason is because they had never seen a Black woman talk about golf. Right. The white outfit aside. Right. That she really stunned everybody. But that aside, I think the representation really matters for students. So talk about, the element of representation, not only in golf, but in the industry as a whole, and how important it is to have that representation.
Well, thank you, Yussuf. I'm honored that people still remember that about me.
Yes, they do.
You knew I was going to bring it up. You knew I was coming. I was going to let you go without bringing that up.
But it's interesting you say that, because I've had that reaction multiple times. I was visiting an HBCU, doing an in-class presentation, and I had never met the professor before. And we were having a little trouble kind of getting me through the parking lot and finding out where class was. And I finally got there. And when I got out my car, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to meet you." I'm like, "Me too." She was like, I wasn't sure what to expect. So I'm like, okay, well, you weren't expecting a Black woman, obviously. So now that we've got over that, it's me. I think it's a breath of fresh air when I have students who will, on the side, and I've had it happen multiple times. "I was so happy to get on the call and see a Black woman. I'm so happy. It's so nice to meet you." So I think I kind of represent what it could be. Like, it's not an impossible feat for you to get here.
Sure.
Because there are more people who look like me here too.
Yep.
So there's a place for you. But let's just find out, how do we get you to that place?
Andrea, one of the things that when I talk to students a lot of times, I talk to them about being well-rounded. And not being so, laser focused on one thing or one area. How important is it for candidates and for people looking for a job, or, whether it's with your company or another, to be well-rounded?
That's a great question, Neil. I always say this, that while the 4.0 may be a scholar, they may not, their scholarship ends there. That you have a 4.0, you've studied, you've shown yourself worthy, you've done all the things, but you know nothing else outside of that realm. And that's in no way, a nod to those people who've achieved that. But if you've made this a full experience, if you've used the every outlet available to you at campus to kind of really understand things, I think that's what matters, to your point of being well-rounded. So well-rounded to me could mean that you have volunteer experience, that you've worked it with your sorority or your fraternity, that you have had an internship opportunity, that you've done some academic projects with your department chair or your dean. So those are the opportunities you seek out. You make effort to say, "Hey, Dean such and such, I'd really love to know more about this." Or, "Hey, Career Services, I know XYZ is a partner of ours. Can I talk to them? Can I get to know them?" So really making best use of all of the available resources at your college or university. And if they don't have them, the World Wide Web is at our fingertips. How can you find that?
One of the things I ask a lot of students, I ask them this one question. I say, "What do you read every day? Do you look at Bloomberg? Do you look at the Wall Street Journal? Do you look at, do you look at any of the sports? What do you look at? What are you reading?" Because I always find that's a great way to ingest information and learn. And, and look, I've been in the business for almost 30 years, and, I consider myself someone that learns every day.
For sure.
Every day. Andrea, first of all, Yussuf and I are really proud to have you as a part of the Get in the Game family. There's no question about it. Yeah. But this year, you're doing something a little bit different. It's not just about Acushnet and FootJoy and Titleist. It's also about an organization called Make Golf Your Career. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Make Off Your Career. I was excited to be able to introduce my Make Off Your Career colleagues to Get in the Game. So Make Off Your Career is made up of industry partners. And those industry partners work in different facets. So we have manufacturing, we have facilities, we have association and membership. All of us kind of work collectively together for the same mission, to bring new, bright talent to our industry, and in addition to those who are underrepresented or underserved. Sure. So we work kind of in concert to see which opportunities make best sense to share job openings, to share experiences, to share, industry knowledge. So I was excited to be able to bring Get in the Game to that team so that we could leverage all of this talent and excitement on Make Off Your Career to the students.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you at Get in the Game. I mean, November 7th through 9th in Baltimore. It's going to be a great event this year. Yussuf and I have been working on the agenda. We've been working on a number of things. I will tell you that golf is getting quite a prominent place in the event.
Good.
So we're really excited about that. Yussuf, anything you want to add about Get in the Game or in general?
I think one, as Neil said, we're very excited to have you back, Andrea. It's very important for us to develop good partnerships. This isn't just, hey, give us some money, right? This is an important partnership. And as you mentioned, it goes towards a great cause, which is to continue to build a pipeline for qualified students of color in the industry, which when I was coming up, there really wasn't one. And I was, one of very few in my industry. So I think it's very important for us to do this. And as I mentioned, very excited to have you back. I would just ask you one more question, in regards to the event and in regards to the career path as well. Mm-hmm. If you could say, to your younger self when you were coming up, particularly for this,
oh goodness,
right? If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would that piece of advice be?
Great question.
Don't give up, that you are just as smart as anybody else in the room. And I say that because I wanted to finish my master's and go on for my PhD. And I kept wondering if I was as smart as other people are. Like, can I do this? Like, do I know as much as they know? And while I've started the PhD journey, I've not finished it yet. After my first few classes, I realized, wait, I'm as smart as them. And some of them I'm a little smarter than. So don't give up on yourself. You can do this. You are absolutely able. And with the right motivation and really just grit is what it takes to kind of get through it. I know that having a terminal degree is not everyone's, aspiration, but it's definitely one that I have.
One of the things I see from you, Andrea, is a great deal of passion for what you do, what you talk about, what you're involved in. I like to believe that I bring a lot of passion to what I do and what I'm involved in. Sometimes people get it a little bit misguided and think that, they take the passion for, I don't know, over enthusiasm or something. But talk a little bit about having passion and how important it is to drive you to, to be successful and to get where you want to get to.
That's what gets you up in the morning. That's what keeps you, up at night reading emails and doing things in the off hours, so to speak.
Sure.
And I think it's important not to mistake that passion with arrogance.
Okay.
Because passion can sometimes be misread as arrogance.
Yes.
And I think as you, and I say this all the time, especially to my team, I was like, I have developed enough grace and tact because I fell and busted my head open many a days with people mistaking my passion for aggression. So really learning to refine it and learning when to be the hammer, as I say, and when to be the feather. So I think that's a great way to kind of put your passion on a continuum. Some days you have to come in hot, as they say. And some days you have to, tread lightly because, a soft answer turns away wrath. That's what it says in Proverbs. And I believe that. So sometimes I have to be soft in my approach and I can't, go guns blazing. And sometimes I have to come with a little more energy. But it's okay to be able to articulate your passion about something. And you have to learn to read the room. Because some rooms will be receptive to it, applaud it, and can't wait to see others. Maybe not so much. My director, who I refer to often, who I love dearly, she's very good at reading the room. And that's a skill that I was happy to be able to learn even more from a deeper standpoint of being able to assess the room and determine, as I call it, when I have to use my feather or my hammer.
So on that note, we're coming up on 30 minutes. I don't want to take up too much of Andrea's time. I want to thank Andrea Lattimore, who is Talent Acquisition and Community Engagement Manager for the Acushnet Companies, of course, representing Titleist and FootJoy. Andrea has been a great partner for Yussuf and I at Get in the Game. We are looking forward. I don't know if you're going to be at Get in the Game this year. You told us you've got some schedule conflicts, but I know Jasmine,
sure.
One of your coworkers is going to be there. And so we're really looking forward to, having you represented well at Get in the Game. Well, Andrea, thank you. Thank you very much for coming on My First Job in Sports.
Thank you, Neil. One more thing, if I might add, for those who are coming, please, ma'ams, please, sirs, make your way to Get in the Game. Please make sure that you engage with my colleagues from Make Off Your Career. You'll learn some really exciting stories about their experience, how they've evolved, but also kind of those unique and obscure opportunities you'd never imagine are part of the golf industry that could be your career also.
And that is a wonderful words to part with. And Andrea, I want to again thank you for coming on My First Job in Sports.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thanks, Yussuf.
Thank you for tuning in to My First Job in Sports. This show has been produced by Brad Mabey. Back episodes can be found at sportsmarketanalytics.com, on the SBRnet YouTube channel, or all major podcast platforms. If you like the show, give us a great review. Also, you can follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, or X.